There's a part of me I feel like that has died. Disgusting. Keep them away from me. And I like it, and also it's my name, and also I'm in bed, so mind-boggling. I'm letting you know now, I have a lot of thoughts and feelings, and I talk about them a lot in this video. I know that that's the point of these videos, but I don't often have so much talking, so I'm just pre-warning everyone. If you stick around until the end, I really appreciate it. If you take one thing away, it's that you should also probably pick it up, because it's really good. But I'm not going to say too much else, and I think we should just get on with the rest of the video. I wanted to check in with everyone following this segment of this book that I read last night that you would have seen from the previous clips. I can't say I'm having a good time because this book is really jarring to read in the current climate. I had no idea what this book was about initially. I'm obviously now beginning to gather what it's about, and it's terrifying. There's a paragraph on page 31 that continues to stick with me. I'm going to read it out. He took a 25-cent piece out of his pocket. There too, in the tiny clear lettering, the same slogans were inscribed. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. And on the other face of the coin, the head of Big Brother. Even from the coin, the eyes pursued you. On coins, on stamps, on the covers of books, on banners, on posters, and on the wrapping of a cigarette packet. Everywhere. Always the eyes watching you and the voice enveloping you. Asleep or awake, no escape. Nothing was your own except for the few cubic centimeters inside of your skull. I think, given the fact that social media being watched, and as somebody who has experienced my social media being watched and passed on to my employer, and, or I guess the things that I've posted passed on to my employer, not for anything other than speaking out against things that have occurred. It's just terrifying to read something that was written in 1949, almost 100 years ago, and for it to ring so true currently. What was supposedly meant to be so exaggerated to create science fiction becomes somebody's reality. I will provide you with more thoughts when I get a little bit more into it. As for the first 50 odd pages, I feel unwell. It's been a hot minute since I've checked in with the class. I'm on pages 138 and 139. I've tabbed a few things in the last 40 pages that have really captured my attention. General consensus at the moment is that I'm enjoying the book, which I knew that I would. I love books like these, historical fiction, war adjacent, historical fiction, science fiction, stuff like this is my bread and butter. I really enjoy it. The people around Winston are incredibly weird. Obviously the whole situation that he's in is really weird, and it's just most of the time quite uncomfortable in a way that makes you want to keep reading. So I'm going to go over what I have tabbed. Start with page 63. So we do meet a few different characters. So we've got Sim, we've got Parsons, there's a little beetle looking dude who doesn't have a name as far as I am, and whether or not we'll ever have a name is to be seen. But there's a part with Sim who's very big on the news speak. A very big advocator of Big Brother, becomes detached from the conversation he's having with Sim, and Winston recognizing that there is such a thing as being too patriotic. Unquestionably, Sim will be vaporized, Winston thought again. He thought it with a kind of sadness, although well knowing that Sim despised him and slightly disliked him, and was fully capable of denouncing him as a thought criminal if he saw any reason for doing so. There was something subtly wrong with Sim. There was something that he lacked: discretion, aloofness, a sort of saving stupidity. You could not say he was unorthodox. He venerated Big Brother, he rejoiced over victories, he hated heretics, not merely with sincerity but with a sort of restless zeal, and up-to-dateness of information which the ordinary party member did not approach. I just like that they note that not only is it possible to become a thought criminal for being a dissenting opinion or a dissenting thought against the bigger party, but also being too patriotic to the party. This second portion that I've tabbed, the kids in these books, disgusting. Keep them away from me. Essentially all of them are raised to then turn on their parents. Obviously with youth comes, what's the word? Not fragility. I'll use the word impressionable for the time being, but that's not the word that I want to use. But they are impressionable, and they will go with what is thrust in their faces. If you need baby repellent, this is for you. Obviously it's a very exaggerated version of baby repellent, but it's crazy how quickly kids will just switch up on you. And this whole section pissed me off to no end. And we've met these kids before in this book, and they were just little assholes. That's the only way to put it. Did I ever tell you, old boy, he said, chuckling around the stem of his pipe. About the time when those two nippers of mine set fire to the old market woman's skirt because they saw her wrapping up sausages in a poster of BB, sneaked up behind her and set fire to it with a box of matches. Burnt her quite badly, I believe. Little beggars, eh? But keen as mustard. That's a first-rate training they give them in the spies nowadays. Better than in my day, even. What do you think's the latest thing they've served them out with? Ear trumpets for listening through keyholes. My little girl brought one home the other night. Tried it out on our sitting room door, and reckoned she could hear twice as much as with her ear to the hole. Of course it's only a toy, mind you. Still gives them the right idea, eh? You're essentially raising little mongrels to turn on you, which is crazy. There is a whole idea in this book of people just being together to conceive specifically. You would go into that fully knowing that you're just conceiving to essentially just have little spies around your house. Like no ability to have free thought. No, none of that. This next tab is just, I feel this on a spiritual level. Your worst enemy, he reflected, was your own nervous system. Another tab, it's a thought that Winston has and puts in his journal that he's not allowed to have. You're not allowed to have journals. This specific moment is written after he's reflecting on a fight that has broken out between, I guess, market women selling different things in different pots and stuff, and essentially just getting very heated and shouting about it and feeling very obviously emotional about whatever was going on. Winston watched them disgustedly, and yet, just for a moment, what almost frightening power had sounded in that cry from only a few hundred throats. Why was it that they could never shout like that about anything that mattered? He wrote, until they become conscious, they will never rebel, and until after they have rebelled, they cannot become conscious. Is that not such an incredible mic drop moment? The weight of that is incredible. And until after they have rebelled, they cannot become conscious. It's not even groundbreaking, and there's only 3 more. Do not fret. This is one of the biggest things that I've seen quoted online recently, with everything going on in the States. It's after Winston goes through a phase of reflecting on, is the past even the past if it can be changed so easily? And it makes sense in this moment, because his job is quite literally changing the past to reflect the current. It's just that idea that, how can you know what part of history is accurate and what has been changed? If I thought too long and hard about that one, it was going to make me upset. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. His heart sank as he thought of the enormous power arrayed against him, the ease with which any party intellectual would overthrow him in debate, subtle arguments which he would not be able to understand, much less answer. And yet he was in the right. They were wrong, and he was right. The obvious, the silly, and the true had got to be defended. Truisms are true. Hold on to that. The solid world exists. Its laws do not change. Stones are hard. Water is wet. Objects unsupported fall towards the earth's center. With the feeling that he was speaking to O'Brien, and also that he was setting forth an important axiom, he wrote, freedom is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 make 4. If that is granted, all else follows. That bit specifically that he puts in his journal, he essentially goes through a whole segment where the end part comes to him saying, if the party was to say that 2 + 2 = 5, and historically that was correct, then that would be right, which is not right. It's all just very thought-provoking and terrifying to apply to the real world. I would not thrive in this environment. Essentially, no time is your own in this world. And I love my quiet time. In this world, it's not a thing. It's suspicious.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
If you spend time alone. In principle, a party member had no spare time and was never alone except in bed. It was assumed that when he was not working, eating, or sleeping, he would be taking part in some kind of communal recreation. To do anything that suggested a taste for solitude, even to go for a walk by yourself, was always slightly dangerous. There was a word for it in Newspeak. Own life, it was called. I would not thrive in this community. So we'll go to the last tab. So I actually just recently read this bit. He mentions, for distances of less than 100 kilometers, it was not necessary to get your passport endorsed. But distances over 100 kilometers? I could travel 100 kilometers and still be in my own state. That is crazy work. But moving on to where I am currently, I know that I've been gabbing on for such a long time. We've met the love interest, Julia. I am very concerned for Winston. I am not sure if my concern is misplaced. Something feels off about Julia. The way in which they meet is essentially her slipping him a note. I won't say what was on the note. Sexual relationships, being in love, is also frowned upon by the party, so that in itself is a whole thing. But Julia just doesn't feel truthful, and my issue is that we've gone through this whole book of Winston being so aware that he's now so, it's either I as the reader am being made to feel this way because we recognize that Winston is an individual and powerful thinker and is a dissenting thinker from the party, to then go and become so immediately completely enamored with this random woman and just so easily fall into potentially getting himself killed. Just immediately. I can imagine this being shot as some form of horror. I think it would be actually incredible. But also he was very honest with what his first thoughts are. His first thoughts were very dark. It's very incel. I'll say that much. It's giving incel. I'm so nervous. And I shouldn't feel this physically ill at the prospect of this, but we're here. We're here now, I guess. Immediately after meeting, she's calling him dear. You thought I was a good party member. You're in word and deed. Banners, processions, slogans, games, community hikes, all that stuff. And you thought that if I had a quarter of a chance, I'd denounce you as a thought criminal and get you killed off. Or is she just so good at pretending like Winston is? You just need to have so much confidence in the person that you're confiding in. Or is she saying this to get him on side so then she can turn him in? It's moments like these where I really want to flick to the end of the book and figure out how it ends and then just continue reading to like see how it unfolds. It would not be the first time. And that might rub some people the wrong way. But okay. I apologize for the ominous lighting setup here because I have my TV on to create light as well as my phone propped up for light. This is another segment of Brittany in bed. That's what I'm calling it. I think it's hot and fresh and I like it, and also it's my name, and also I'm in bed, so I actually cannot remember where I left off. Oh, I know that I ended up needing to clip this last time. Do you like my cat PJs? I mean, I was in black last time. I feel like that was a bit more apt. I cannot be bothered getting up to stop recording though. I have really bad memory, so I'm just trying to think of what it was that I spoke about last. I feel intelligent as fuck reading this book. I understand why the classic girlies are like, I only read classics. You feel so smart. Maybe not all of them are smart, but they're just, the way that they're so eloquently written, I understand it. I get the vibe. I personally could not read a book like this every book. You know what I mean? It would need to be staggered. It's just my tiny brain. I think I was up to this bit. Yeah, so they're like introducing themselves. Essentially, the next portion of this book is them gallivanting. Not exactly gallivanting, but gallivanting. All things that are making me mildly concerned. I would like to lie to you and say that it is not, but it is. Also, Sim vanished, gone. Winston called that a mile away. I didn't think they would do it, but maybe that's exactly why he did it, because I really didn't think he would do it. Not that he was a main character by any stretch of the imagination, but what we have seen so far in this book is the beginning, obviously being Winston not discovering, he doesn't believe everything that the party says. And that is, and then we meet Julia, and Julia is a young, sprightly woman who is allegedly also dissenting against the party. Something feels off about it. There's a lot of discussion surrounding the party and how things are run, and really astounding things happening, bombs being dropped everywhere at any one time, and that just being such a regular and normal occurrence. And obviously the way in which they orchestrate their lives, and by they I mean the party, the way in which the party orchestrates the lives of the people in the inner party, the outer party, the proles being the lower class, the outer party being the middle, inner party being high or medium to high. It's such a great depiction of class, and not to be a millennial, but the rat race of working in a society like this and being subject to all of the teachings and being subject to the faith. I use faith loosely here. It's a totalitarian state. That's what it is. To me, it's crazy that a world like this was invented, but also to see so many similarities. North Korea is a real life, real time example of this book, and that is terrifying. Maybe not to the extent of being watched in your homes, but also we don't know. The idea that the party is just feeding you all of these statistics and all of this crap and all of this propaganda. You can only imagine what is going on in a place like North Korea. Thinking of the real life examples and the real life implications of something like this and applying it to your own society is very dark, very thought-provoking, and a good thing to do, because you don't just want to be, I sound so old, you never want to be a slave to a system. And I say that knowing I work a 9 to 5 and that I am arguably in some way, shape or form a slave to the system. If I think about it too hard, I will get upset. Julia and Winston are discussing some portion of Big Brother, or some portion of the many wars that are continuous and never ending, and there's a moment where Julia is talking about the concept of war, and obviously you're just being told that you're in a war, but you can't physically see it except for bombs dropping, etc., etc., the lack of resources, all of these things. And Winston, who likes to pride himself on being not one to conform, is shocked when Julia expresses the notion of, well, I just don't even think the war is real. And I think it's funny that Winston is so shocked that he didn't even think about that, because you don't know how deep this brain rot of how far Big Brother or the party has its grip on you in terms of what you believe and what you don't believe and what you're being told. You don't think about the fact that it could actually be fake news, because whilst, yeah, you don't believe that the war is against a certain party or you're siding with a certain party, you still believe the war is going on because of XYZ reason, but it's still ingrained in you that a war is occurring because you've been conditioned to think so, and it's been going on for genuinely that long, to the point where you just know that it's happening. So for the concept of it to just not be happening and to just be scaring people to keep them in line, because people have to be fighting for a cause, to accept their circumstances as they are, mind-boggling. It also just makes you think about all of the wars that occur. I talked about, obviously, social media, it's very different nowadays. Back, in this, whilst it is not an actual time, but obviously before social media, before the internet, you wouldn't know any better. I like that Mr. Orwell put that in there to show that whilst we've got this main character who is fight the party, fight Big Brother, still some concepts elude him. Looking back, there are some tabs that I simply can't explain. So I may have a moment of silence, but this tab I can't explain. I think I just really like the messaging. I like most of this messaging. Is that the right way to phrase that? I would like to think that I would not just believe the bullshit being fed to me, but I don't know. With this tab, I just like the revelation that they were having about your feelings being your own, whilst obviously in this world it's frowned upon to have a certain feeling, express a certain thing, look a certain way, like quite literally your facial expressions, your body language. But they sort of have a moment of realization of keeping human to yourself and being honest with yourself about your feelings, and that if you do stay honest with yourself about your feelings, then realistically they can never touch you. So long as you keep a level head, of course, against such a big party. Maybe it's not the idea that you need to have this big rebellion, but if you can stay human throughout such desolate times, then that in itself is rebellion. And I just really liked that concept. It's wholesome, a form of expression that nobody can take away from you. I don't know if I mentioned, but at the start I did mention in the journal he's writing to this person named O'Brien, who he believes he has some sort of connection with and that they've linked through their descent, but he doesn't actually know it. So it turns out O'Brien is indeed part of the Brotherhood, which is a underground collection of people. Again, it's a big organization that you just have to have complete faith in. It's just another cog in the system. You get this book that you're supposed to read because everyone in the Brotherhood reads it. Whether or not that's even true, we don't know. You just have to have blind faith, the same way in which you have to have blind faith of the party. I'm really scared about how this book is going to end, because Winston is an absolute idiot, and when he gets invited to O'Brien's house or unit, apartment, whatever the fuck, he brings Julia with him just off of like a vibe and just waltzes in with her and doesn't think about the fact this could be a very bad situation and he could have just killed both of them. No, all of this makes me uneasy. O'Brien goes through a whole list of commandments. You are prepared to give your lives. You are prepared to commit murder, to commit acts of sabotage which may cause the death of hundreds of innocent people, to betray your country to foreign powers. You are prepared to cheat, to forge, to blackmail, to corrupt the minds of children, to distribute habit-forming drugs, to encourage prostitution, to disseminate venereal diseases, to do anything which is likely to cause demoralization and weaken the power of the party. They are blindly agreeing to the exact same thing that is occurring now within the party, just under a different name. There's nobody seeing the irony in that. The blind literally leading the blind, the same way in which everyone blindly follows Big Brother. It rubs me the wrong way. You already agreed to all of this, just with a different, bigger entity. They agree to all of it, of course, and we move on to the hate week is occurring. This is a big deal. It's a big deal for everyone. It's a big celebration of hatred of the war and what is going on, the country that we hate right now and the ally that we love right now. And in the middle of the demonstration, the main demonstration of Hate Week, halfway through, the guy speaking there's a little guy comes up to the stage, hands him a note, and all of a sudden the war is against the other country. And the general response is that there were saboteurs. Are we so deluded? They are. It's crazy to me how people can be so blinded by what they believe in that they don't see the truth of what is occurring, which is that your big brother has no idea what's going on, or they do and it's very calculated, but for them to be able to just switch, and the guy mid demonstration just completely changes who he's talking about, but without even a without even thinking. He unrolled it and read it without pausing in his speech. Nothing altered in his voice or manner or in the content of what he was saying, but suddenly the names were different. Without words said, a wave of understanding rippled through the crowd. Oceania was at war with East Asia. The next moment there was a tremendous commotion. The banners and posters with which the square was decorated were all wrong. Quite half of them had the wrong faces on them. It was sabotage. The agents of Goldstein had been at work. It was a riotous interlude where posters were ripped from the walls, banners torn to shreds and trampled underfoot. The spies performed prodigies of activity in clambering over the rooftops and cutting the streamers that flooded from the chimneys. But within 2 or 3 minutes it was all over. The hate continued exactly as before, except that the target had been changed. So finally, during all of this riotous hate speech going on, he gets the briefcase because he gets the book. What's my theory right now? My theory, this is all some sort of ruse for people who want to rebel, have the feeling of rebellion, but people are planted to act like there's a big brother, and to act like there's a brotherhood. It's in the name, brother. Brotherhood doesn't exist. It's just a way for rebellious people to feel vindicated. The other theory, I feel like saying that they get caught and vaporized feels too easy, because that is inevitably my second option, being they get caught and vaporized. The first one feels right though. I'm psychoanalyzing this too much. A system set up by the system to then stop the actual system from crumbling. Do you know what I mean? I feel crazy. Was Goldstein even real? Whatever. Anyway, so he gets the briefcase, he starts reading the book. Now this book, personally, I found it really interesting. It is a lot of exposition by way of reading this book. You are reading the book in the book. It's so eloquently put. It's just so profound and so intelligent. It is delicious for my brain. It is delicious for my eyes. It's essentially just expressing the fact that the war is made up and the war is used as a system to keep people in line and to keep people in check and to keep people from rebelling and to keep people accepting the circumstances in the way that they are, which is not good. You put out all of these statistics and you put out all of these things and you waste all of these resources to make it look like you're using up all of your resources when you're just keeping everyone at bay to a limited extent, because that way nobody can complain. If the statistics sound like they're getting better, but obviously the war is still going on, so you have to waste all of your resources there. People are not going to be so inclined as to rebel because Big Brother is just doing what they can. You have to believe that there's a war going on. Otherwise, why would your government not be giving you resources? You have to believe that these things are occurring, because the reality of it being made up to be kept in line is something that would probably send you crazy. I just really enjoyed how eloquently written it was. It just felt like there was a lot of knowledge in this section. It was very dense, I will reiterate. Most of this book is, or can get quite dense. So if you're not one to like a dense read, then you probably won't like this book. The problem was how to keep the wheels of industry turning without increasing the real wealth of the world. Goods must be produced, but they must not be distributed, and in practice, the only way of achieving this was by continuous warfare. The essential act of war is destruction, not necessarily of human lives, but of the products of human labor. War is a way of shattering to pieces, or pouring into the stratosphere, or sinking in the depths of the sea, materials which might otherwise be used to make the masses too comfortable and hence, in the long run, too intelligent. Even when weapons of war are not actually destroyed, the manufacture is still a convenient way of expending labor power without producing anything that can be consumed. It's such a horrid concept. Truly, this book could be a horror, and I understand now why people have said that, because this is horrifying. How can you come to terms with something like that within yourself? The two aims of the party are to conquer the whole surface of the earth and to extinguish once and for all the possibility of independent thought. There are therefore two great problems with which the party is concerned to solve. One is how to discover, against his will, what another human being is thinking, and the other is how to kill several 100 million people in a few seconds without giving warning beforehand. Just being a menace. This next tab is about how they're secluded from the world. In past ages, a war, almost by definition, was something that sooner or later came to an end, usually an unmistakable victory or defeat. In the past, also, war was one of the main instruments by which human societies were kept in touch with physical reality. All rulers in all ages have tried to impose a false view of the world upon their followers, but they could not afford to encourage any illusion that tended to impair military efficiency. So long as defeat meant the loss of independence or some other result generally held to be undesirable. The precautions against defeat had to be serious. Physical facts could not be ignored. In philosophy or religion or ethics or politics, 2 and 2 might make 5, but when one is designing a gun or an aeroplane, they had to make 4. I like that that's a callback to Winston's inner monologue earlier about knowing that 2 and 2 make 4, but being told for so long that 2 and 2 make 5. It eats up the surplus of consumable goods and helps to preserve the special mental atmosphere that a hierarchical society needs. War, it will be seen, is now a purely internal affair. The war is waged by each ruling group against its own subjects, and the object of the war is not to make or prevent conquests, but to keep the structure of society intact. The very word war, therefore, has become misleading. It would probably be accurate to say that by becoming continuous, war has ceased to exist. The effect would be much the same if the 3 superstates, instead of fighting one another, should agree to live in perpetual peace within its own boundaries, for in that case, each would still be a self-contained universe, freed forever from the sobering influence of external danger. A peace that was truly permanent would be the same as a permanent war. This, although the vast majority of the party members understand it only in a shallower sense, is the inner meaning of the party's slogan, "War is peace." That is diabolical. That is diabolical. Your literal slogan being that war is peace because it's so goddamn continuous that it keeps your hierarchy intact, so then it doesn't create unrest and therefore keeps peace in your own society. War is peace because war is what you are feeding to the people and forcing them to accept. I'm almost done. I really want to finish it. I'm gonna try and finish it tonight, to be honest. We're gonna go and we're gonna finish the book. Hoorah, comrades. It is sometime later and we are almost at the end of this book, so I feel like I need to record my reaction. So this entire time, Winston and Julia have been hiding out in this room and they're singing some sort of song that they remembered hearing the other day. And then a voice behind the picture frame sings a line and they understandably shit themselves. My battery died, but the guy who did him in was the same motherfucker who rendered him the spare room that he was sneaking in with Julia. You know how I was complaining about those fucking kids? Guess who's in jail? Guess who's in jail with Winston? Parsons. You know why? His fucking daughter did him in with a little listening thing. She listened at the keyhole, heard what I was saying and nipped off to the patrols the very next day. Pretty smart for a nipper of 7A. I don't bear her any grudge for it. In fact, I'm proud of her. It shows I brought her up in the right spirit anyway. And then he proceeds to take a shit in front of Winston. You know what I'm going to say to them when I go up to the tribunal? Thank you, I'm going to say. Thank you for saving me before it was too late. These people are brainwashed. They've got you too, he cried. They got me a long time ago, said O'Brien with a mild, almost regretful irony. I fucking knew it. Remember, he went on, writing in your diary, freedom is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 make 4. Yes, said Winston. O'Brien held up his left hand, its back towards Winston, with the thumb hidden and the 4 fingers extended. How many fingers am I holding up, Winston? 4. And if the party says that it is not 4 but 5, then how many? 4. What have you done with Julia? She betrayed you, Winston, immediately, unreservedly. I've seldom seen anyone come over to us so promptly. You would have hardly recognized her if you saw her. All her rebelliousness, her deceit, her folly, her dirty-mindedness, everything has been burned out of her. It was a perfect conversion, a textbook case. Winston has not betrayed Julia. Oh, and now he's thrown Julia under the bus. I was really not hoping for that outcome. I'm really disappointed and upset. I don't know why I feel so emotional about how that ended. Okay, these are my full and final thoughts on 1984 because this is the outro. I finished the book. That book rocked me. Fundamentally, I feel like life is crazy and so is that book. There's a part of me I feel like that has died reading that book. And that maybe sounds dramatic, but if you read it, I feel like you would understand where I'm coming from because you think it's going to end, well, I was hoping it was going to end with a happy ending. And that's not what you get. That is not what you get at all. You get Winston being converted, O'Brien being part of the party, and Winston loving Big Brother. So that was truly traumatizing to me. The book itself the way that it was written, that was such an incredible book. All of the impending doom thoughts aside, that book was so eloquently written, and I have to give it 5 stars. I have to give it 5 stars. It was so fucking good. It was so good. I highly implore anyone who hasn't read it to read it. I can't believe it's taken me this long. I know a lot of people read it as part of, you know, like high school literature or English or whatever it is, here, there, and everywhere around the world, but I feel hard done by that I didn't read that as a part of my curriculum, because that was incredible. If you are not prepared, if you are not in the mental space right now to be reading a book like that, very heavy on the Big Brother themes, heavy on the real doom and gloom, despair of life sort of themes, then I certainly wouldn't read it right now. But if you're into that, put this on your list. I would genuinely, I feel like this book is going to be one of my top 10 reads of the year. It was incredible. Read it if you haven't read it. If it's on your list, bump it up. If you don't understand the gravity of the book and what it's trying to tell you, then I can't tell you. The girls that get it. I actually didn't say jarring as much as I thought I would say jarring in this video. You really thought he was going to make it out alive. You really thought it was going to be this whole... Actually, there was a portion when we were getting to the book part, as in when he got given the book, and it was getting to the end, and I thought, wow, that's really not a lot of pages for a revolution, either externally or internally. And I got a bit nervous. Maybe that's a good thing about reading on a Kindle sometimes, is that you can't see how little you have left, and that can't create more worry in your mind. But this book just made me feel anxious, and it made me overthink everything. But my overthinking was correct. What is it called? My guess? No. My prediction. That's the word. My prediction was correct, and O'Brien was part of the party. Although Julia, I really thought Julia was part of the party, and she wasn't, and that was surprising. And then there's a bit afterwards where they're both like conditioned, or after they're conditioned, they like see each other again, and then it's just they try to fight so hard for each other in the first instance of, oh, well, will you like give each other up? And they're like, no. And then as soon as they're faced with their fears in room 101, immediately give this to Julia. And she did the same thing. It's not often that I can get through a book and feel so connected to it and like I want to read it all the time. I was reading it on the train to work. I was reading it on the train from work. I was reading it at work. I will be chasing another book like that. I'm going to end this video here. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, that's incredible. And if you liked my yapping, like and subscribe. But if not, and you're still here and you hate watching, thank you for the views, baby. I'm gonna let you go. Bye.